We're coming back to build on the interview we did last week in relation to Nigel's care and how it's administered. But we'd like to also inform people from our experience what's worked and what's good care and what's bad care. We touched on that last time. And the importance of holistic care, where every aspect of care is supported, and everybody's working consistently towards that betterment for that person, so that person lives a healthier life. We're going to look at areas such as oral care, in relation, excuse my nose folks, dental, I don't mean as it looks, I mean actually, because I've got sinus trouble.
Yeah,
I don't mind having a big nose, it's fine. Oral care is in dental care, ensuring that the teeth are looked after and regular dental appointments, which is what takes place with Nigel. Making sure that Nigel attends health, anything to do with his health appointments. The GP just been this morning, Nigel, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Which went well. So we're going to begin with Trey and Nigel discussing openly about how they got to a point where Nigel's care became more substantial around his diet, his health and well-being. And they're going to mention a couple of things that they've done, which again informs people, hopefully, and they can get on board with that. How best to administer care for someone living independently so they can continue to live independently. So I'm going to pass you across to Nigel and Trey, doesn't really matter who goes first. Just tell the people listening, when they eventually listen, the kinds of things you did in the early days that got Nigel to a better place and his health improved. What kinds of things did you do? How did you get there?
Well, if you remember, Nigel, this is a time when you were obese, morbidly obese going towards, yes?
Yeah.
And you were ill, and we were advised you really need to look at your health and well-being and your weight and your diet. So we started from there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
And then we started to look at what you were eating, and on a weekly basis, because we changed it a lot, didn't we? Can you remember how we changed it?
Well, looking at the stuff that I ate and unhealthy stuff.
Do you want to enlarge on that, Nigel? Because there's many people living similar kinds of lives that you were back in time. People who are under particular services and just eat what they want, when they want, maybe don't even eat at all. What kinds of things were you taking part in relation to your diet that was detrimental and got you to the obese stage you were at, which I think was 23 stone, just under?
Stone, yes.
Just, you know, have a little bit of a think and mention some things you were doing, Nigel, that led to where you got to in relation to your obesity. What kinds of things were you eating that in greater quantities?
Well,
cheese was one.
Yeah, cheese.
Right, but cheese was with someone else as well. You had a burger or something, cheeseburger or cheese on its own.
Yeah.
Chocolate in great amounts, and maybe going out for a Chinese or something as well.
So you had takeaways?
A lot of takeaways, yeah.
A lot of takeaways.
I mean, it's quite common now out there for people to pop in for a snack,
Yeah.
have a cheeseburger,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah,
You know, I mean, we're not here to judge people doing that, because
No.
you know, that's fine for a lot of people. But if you're doing it in greater quantities, where
yeah,
you
that's
know,
what I mean, yeah.
and I mean, if I think back to the cheese sandwiches that you used to make yourself, we're pretty much talking about a slab of cheese, you know, lasting probably a day, 2 days max.
Two days
yes,
max,
it was cheese. It was bread with your cheese, wasn't it? Like
Yeah.
3 big
Bread, yeah, cheese.
and a
Bread
little
was
bit,
thin.
2 bits of bread.
2 bits of bread.
And of course, cheese does have a high content of fat,
Does, yeah.
which is, I think, well, not think, I know that's what led to Nigel along with the other things, putting that weight on. Anything else you were consuming, Nigel, that was high fat and high sugar? You mentioned chocolate and burgers and things like that. What else were you eating? Or even drinking, you know, because
I was drinking lots, well, yeah, just drinking, having coffees and that with sugar in, and drinking lots of alcohol and stuff like that.
Did you have fizzy drinks as well?
Fizzy drinks as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
vaguely remember, yeah, you used to like fizzy drinks.
Yeah.
And very high in sugar, aren't
They're
they?
very high, yeah.
Fizzy drinks, and yeah, I don't think people realise always how much moreish they are.
Yeah, they are very Moorish, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got one bottle, and before you know it, you've gone through 3 bottles in a week, maybe 4, and before
Yeah.
you know it, it's got even worse.
Yeah, it did get worse, yeah.
And bread,
Oh,
definitely.
bread.
Yeah.
substantial, and you know, that's still around, you know, most people with addiction problems, and this is what it is, folks, it's addiction, basically. You know, most people who become obese, it's because they're addicted to particular foods and
Yeah.
drinks, etc., in great quantities. Just now we've got to that point now, because we could go on and name
No.
and shame Nigel for the next hour or whatever.
Yes.
We know that contributed to the increase in weight. Attached to that was also the emotional side. You know,
Oh, yeah,
you were eating for comfort and things. So once that was identified, what did you and Trey do to get you to a better place, or a worse place at the outset for you?
Yeah, worse, please.
Talk me through, for people, how you got to where you're at now, because you're now 16 stone just over,
Yeah.
compared to what you were almost.
Oh,
You know,
Yeah.
what was it, 23?
Nearly
Something-
23
yeah.
stone, yeah.
You know, which is a massive, folks. You know, and I think Nigel should congratulate himself for achieving that, 'cause it was flipping hard work, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
You know, and he's maintained that weight as well,
Yeah, no.
along with the exercise. So how did you get there then, you'd say? What happened there once you'd identified that? What took place? Apart from arguing something, and you get locked in the house, Nigel.
6 months.
Because it was a really difficult, rocky road
It was.
to get to where you're at now, and although
Yeah.
it's still difficult for you at times, you know, and we discussed about bread yesterday, potatoes, chocolate, things like
Yeah,
that,
yogurt sometimes, you know.
you know, and most people, you know, average people are doing stuff like that anyway. But if you've been obese, that's the dangerous thing to do. You're getting on top of it. So you were pretty much kind of ring fenced with food, weren't you?
Yeah.
And how did that take place? What happened apart from what I mentioned before, being locked in?
Well, the first thing I remember us doing, Nigel, we looked at your weekly diet and how we could change
Yeah.
it. We had days and we were looking at what things you could eat on those days,
Yeah.
and what kind of foods you could eat. And we worked it out on a daily basis, didn't we?
We sat down and did a...
It's almost like a mini menu.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You had choices, and you still do that. We have choices of what you can have on the day. You can either have this or that.
Yeah, I don't have to stick to something, but like some people do.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
prescriptive, Nigel. No,
yeah,
and I think
it gives you options, doesn't it?
I think people listen to this now, you know, don't think that this is dictatorial where Nigel's told exactly what he's got to eat. At every stage of this process, Nigel's involved in that, and he does have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, we've said many times, if Nigel wants to OD on food and he wants to get fatted again, that's entirely up to him. We can't stop that. We can only advise that that's not a good place to go to, because you become unwell, and I think you mentioned that last time on camera, Nigel, didn't you? Talk to me again, because we could talk a long time about this. What the feelings were at that time, Nigel? Did you feel deprived of food? Did it make you unwell because you couldn't get that comfort? I know you two had many battles over it, didn't you?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. We did have a bit of a battle, but I started to realise that it would affect me. Sorry about the phone.
No, it's alright.
We doing. Well, think of a,
No, don't worry, just
That's
you know, just say what you think.
Well, for instance, can you remember we would go shopping,
yeah.
and you would go to the part of the shop you'd normally go for
Yes.
before,
Yeah.
and you would be kind of looking at the food you used to always eat.
Yeah.
And can you remember what happened with the cheese when we realised there was... Because you were eating cheese at first, weren't you?
Yes, I was,
Cheese
yeah.
sandwiches. And then we realised that actually you were having blocks of cheese and a couple of wee bits of bread. So we had to... Can you remember how that worked out? How we worked that out? You know, looking at that situation. That's one thing, isn't it, that I remember.
Yeah, how you reduced it, Nigel,
Yeah.
you know, your
Yeah.
intake, because I know we used to joke about you scratching around in the back room trying to find cheese.
Cheese.
And it was, with any addiction, it's hard to reduce that particular substance, because it causes a lot of upset
Does, yeah.
within your body, because your body's saying, well, where's it at? You know, I need to feel good again. Give me that cheese, or give me that chocolate. Because it's important for people to hear how it is, because if and you actually were unlucky, because had it been done, you know, earlier on at the outset, you know, and your emotions, you know, your anxiety stuff were better handled earlier,
Yeah,
well,
right.
back in time, you probably wouldn't have got to that point.
No.
You know, because Nigel never was a big lad. You know, he always looked lean. If you go back to the older pictures of
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you know, so Nigel's a more extreme case, but there will be people that are listening now where it's just round the corner. It's waiting for them.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't even have to become obese to be unwell. You won't even see it sometimes.
No, you won't.
You know, so obviously this is a bigger thing, and we are going to keep coming back to interviews. Talk us through the next stage then, after your menus. What happened after that? And your withdrawal symptoms, obviously.
Yeah, because you did have those. I remember you had those.
Yes. I did have withdrawals.
And there will be lapses, we said that,
Yeah,
you know.
I had a lapse, yeah. But
There's lapses still.
Yeah.
Chocolate, bread, potatoes.
I remember, yes, what happened after that, when we kind of like, you got to organise with your menus. You started getting food in for the week. And you knew, had an idea what you were going to have on that day.
yeah.
You had a choice. And you were eating less of the food you used to eat.
Yeah.
So how did it work for you after that, once you got into that routine?
Just by reducing stuff. What I eat.
Did you find, because I mean this might sound simplistic to some people, because it doesn't actually work in essence unless it's consistent, as in,
Yeah.
right, you know, we come in to support Nigel, he's had a day where he's been, you know, left to his own devices, and then if Nigel's lapsed and he's eaten more than perhaps is good for him, then we can sit and talk about it, you know, and let's go back to the drawing board, we'll try and, you know, look at a different way maybe of doing it, or maybe, you know, we'll be in contact more often so that, you know, you're less likely to fall back. Because I know the milk was an issue as well at one
It was,
time.
yeah.
It was, yeah.
You know, I think you were going through 2 bottles a week, was it?
I think it was 4 pints a week, wasn't it? you
Yeah,
were
4
going
pints. And, you know, again...
through? And it was full fat as well at first, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, you buy full fat, yeah. But again, everything was done in incremental stages,
It was,
wasn't it?
yeah.
It wasn't, you know, forced on you. But then there was also times where you could get out and actually OD. Can you think back to a time when you did that and where you went to?
Well, just restaurants and the pub, well, mainly the pub, yeah.
Hmm.
And that's something there, yeah.
And what about nearer to home? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And what were you doing there?
And you used to go and visit a family member.
Oh, I go get to have takeaways and that.
Yeah.
So, anybody listening now, other than actually detaining the individual, which we don't promote, you can only do so much,
Yeah.
and people will look for things. So this is a trickle process, you know, this is done over a long period of time, this isn't it? We haven't
Yeah,
just
we
done
do.
this in a small window.
No.
You have to be consistent in your approaches, and we will come on to approaches in another interview. At the moment, we're just looking at this particular area to give you an idea of how we manage that. So when you were caught out going to pubs and restaurants and your mums,
Yeah.
what took place next? Do you remember? Apart from being shamed,
Shamed, always shamed.
humiliated he was, folks. You've been to your mums, you've had Chinese. No, you haven't. So what took place then? Because it was, you know, we weren't telling you not to do that. We just advised them basically the downside of that. Because it is dead easy, isn't it?
It is too easy, yeah.
So what changed then? What took place once that those things occurred? What happened between you both?
Well, you just advised me what would happen if I had too many takeaways and stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Just say, well, have a takeaway, but don't have too many. And
Yeah, and I think also we'd sorry to put it there now. So I think we'd also said as well not to feel guilty when you did
Yeah.
lapse.
yeah,
You know, I mean, I know if anybody's listening now, or when you do listen, that works in the field of addiction, guilt is the worst thing you can impose on someone that's struggling. And I would definitely would not, you know, promote that. So Then you moved on a stage, didn't you? Because you started to take more control of your
Yeah.
diet. Because I noticed that there wasn't as many lock-ons between you two.
No.
You know, you would both sit and talk about, you know, how
Yeah.
it had gone and, you know, what you'd had for the day. So in relation to the shopping and what you consumed within the week, how did that change?
Well, I think one of the things that changed was we'd started to discuss how you could cook more,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah.
First we started using the microwave,
Yeah.
and we started to get meals you could do, and I don't mean just the made up meals. We're talking about separate things you could put
Yeah.
together, like rice and vegetables and your beans and potatoes and stuff. And
Yeah.
that was something we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
To give you variety.
Yeah.
Because the first few months it was kind of restricted to try to get you into a routine and get you used to a different way of eating. But then we started to expand that. So you cooked and you thought about a bit more about what you were eating.
Yeah.
And then we got the steam cooker, didn't we?
Yes.
The pressure cooker.
Pressure cooker, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think the use of his own.
Yes,
The blog, isn't it?
we
Yeah.
had some videos up of us using that. And you've really got into that, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
So what I noticed happened, Nigel, was you would talk to me, right, what's going on my list this week? Because I'm thinking about cooking next week.
Yeah.
What are we thinking of doing next week? Are we going to be doing this? What are we going to get? And that was your vegetables, your flavouring, if you were getting pasta or anything like that. So you thought about it more, didn't you?
Yeah.
You got in, you engaged with it more, I noticed.
So what are we recommending to people then? How, if someone's in your service and you're getting paid to look after them, what are we actually recommending then that's worked for you quite clearly? You know, how could people do that? How would they administer that to people?
Well, I think at first we talked about how you could cook safely.
Yeah.
And I remember we were limited with the microwave. We were trying to find ways that you could cook safely, work around your disabilities and your dexterity and your balance
Yeah.
and the times when you get confused. So we looked into that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
I looked online, we looked what we could use, we decided on the cooker. And then we looked up menus.
We did, we could cook with the,
With the
with the steam cooker, yeah.
Yeah.
And we also got other things as well, didn't we? With the,
We got some printed stuff, I remember.
yeah, and I think there was some that came with the,
There was.
Oh, there was, yeah, with the
yeah,
cooker.
there was things on, suggestions on a menu.
Suggestions. Yeah, I remember that.
So for support staff, sorry Trey, because I'm so at the time, obviously, we'll come back to this.
Yeah.
So for support staff listening to this now, or
Yeah.
people who run care agencies, are we talking about a consistent approach that everybody works the same way with that individual? Or is it a random thing where perhaps they go in and say, oh, you know, what do you want to eat today, with no structure? Is it better to have structure placed in a person's care whereby they know what's going on and they participate in that? Is it crucial to make sure that the shopping aspect also ties in with that? Or just pop in the shop now and again and buy this and buy that? You know, what's the importance of structure? What would you recommend to people for support staff or care organisers? What works best based on your experience?
Well, sit and talk about what you're going to do and what you're going to buy in the shop, and then that individual knows what's happening and what you're going to buy and what you're going to cook.
So, if support staff are doing the shopping for the individual, is that right or wrong? They don't go with them, they don't take part in the shop, or they walk behind them while the staff are just taking some off the shelf.
I reckon it's a bit wrong because the individual doesn't know what that member of stuff is buying.
Yeah, because there's a risk of that staff believing what's best for that individual, and if they aren't eating properly, then they're going to end up, you know,
Passing that on,
buying burgers and things like that. And also, and I know this in my own experience, people taking people for takeaways or ordering takeaways in, which isn't a bad thing now and again,
No, and then, no.
but it isn't actually any good to the individual if that's what they're expecting all the time.
Yeah.
You know, every Saturday night we're having a takeaway, Johnny, you know, and isn't that wonderful? actually what's happening is it's the member of staff that wants to take away,
Yeah,
and then the individual kind of goes along with it. So you've got a massive responsibility about how you actually work with people, so you don't take over. And that brings me on to ask you now, Nigel, do you feel as though, and obviously it depends on the person's cognition, doesn't it?
yeah.
Do you feel as though you've had control and been able to participate at every particular length of time in every activity you've done with Trey? Do you feel as though now you understand what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, I understand, yes. What works and stuff.
And why did that happen then? You know, what took place between you two that made that happen? Because it's in a good place now,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
You know, what did you two do to get to that point? Because we're trying to inform people what works. Have you got a structure in place?
Yes, we communicate regularly about
Yeah,
what we're going to be doing.
yeah, definitely. And then you mentioned about what I need.
Yeah, yeah. And we talk about as well, even when we're doing the cooking,
Yeah,
you'll say to me, oh, this is running out, do I need to get this?
yeah,
We're looking at things all the time, even when we're doing the actual cooking.
yeah.
So what if someone hasn't got the cognitive ability, although they are participating in what's going on, to actually compile shopping lists? What would you do in that situation where you wouldn't necessarily take control? How would you do that? That person can't communicate very well.
Well, if that person can't communicate very well or there's confusion and such like, to be there and to be able to try and explain what it is that you're doing, right, for instance, we're going to be doing this cooking,
Yeah,
and it's very similar to what we do, and we look at what's in your cupboards and what we're going to need, and right, okay, this is missing, or you've got this,
yeah,
and we say, oh, we need this for this reason, and then it goes on the list, and we write, and actually you write out your list, but if
yeah, do I?
somebody else couldn't, you could write it out for them,
Yeah.
but they're there and they're part of the
Yeah,
process.
you help them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the approach will be different, but the individual will be involved in every stage.
Yeah,
And I think that's crucial. I mean, this is something, again, I'm trying to inform people on. Even if the person's only in the kitchen with you while you're doing it,
yeah,
and you show them a tin of meat or something like that, do we
Yeah.
need any more of that, such and such, you know? And if obviously they can understand, you know, with their ears, then that's good. If they can't, then sometimes people can see colours and textures and things like that. But we've got to come back to that. And just because you're in a rush doesn't mean to say you can hurry that person to do that process, because that's not proper support, basically. If that person isn't able to do things quickly with you, then you make damn sure you go in earlier and do it. You timetable it whereby it's maybe done in stages
Yes.
over time. But we'll come on to the approaches for people who haven't got as much cognition as Nigel's got. So what else has been successful there? Well, what's the structure you've got in place now?
well, we tend to try and pick a day we're going to do the cooking, don't we?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
We also decide the day before what we're going to be doing.
Yeah,
On that day, you do prep as well.
I do,
You get
yeah.
all the stuff cleaned, make sure everything's cleaned, all your
Yeah.
utensils and everything, it's all set out. We have a routine.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
We have a routine, you know what the routine is. I prompt you if you get confused,
Yeah,
because
you do, yeah.
as much as possible, I step back and allow you to do your routine, because you know what your routine is, and
Yeah.
you'll just sometimes look and say, oh, what is it I've missed? You know, what do I need? So it's you taking control of that, and that's, I feel, has worked best for you.
It
Do,
does,
do,
yeah.
do you feel as though you've got that? And again, it's not a loaded question now. It's not like a yes and no question. Do you feel as though you've got that control of your diet and what you eat and what you don't eat? I'm not talking about the addictive things that you would hanker after.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though you've got that control? Because many people who are in services haven't got that control.
No, they haven't.
The foods are cooked for them, they're put out for them, you know, the shopping's... I mean, you remember going back in time where you go up and was walking behind the staff in the supermarket, you know.
Seeing that with
You know, it's a simple thing like, oh, can you get me that so-and-so off the shelf and support them to get that and put it in the basket. A little thing like that makes someone feel as though they're involved and included.
Yes,
You know, and again, we'll come back to that stuff about the approaches. Anything else on that structure you've got in place now that we need to mention on camera before we round off?
Well, I think really the structure, and you actually will mention more about cooking.
Yeah, well,
You bring it to me when we're going to do it and what we're going to be doing this
Yeah.
time. And I've checked, you know, we've got stuff
Oh, yeah.
in last week
yeah,
because we know we're going to make sure we got, like we did yesterday with the shopping.
Yeah.
So everything's connected.
it is, yeah.
And when we're not using the pressure cooker and you're doing some meals with the microwave, you'll come to me sometimes and say, okay, I'm having such and such on that day, or I have such and such on that day. So you have planned out the other days.
Yeah.
And if you have any confusion, you tend to come back to me and say, oh, what do you think about this for this day, that day? If you have a treat,
Yeah.
or is that okay for that day, should I have it on that day? So you tend to talk through it, don't you, if
Yeah, I
you get
do, yeah.
confused. You like to be clear
Yeah, I do, yeah.
of what you having, what days, you know, how it's going to work for you.
So consistency is
Yeah.
the key, isn't it?
Yeah, consistent,
Yeah, we talk about it quite a bit, don't we, about your diet and how
Yes,
it's
we do,
working
yeah.
for you.
So if you have a situation where the individual's in a particular home, house or whatever that's supported, there's a number of different support workers, how would that consistent approach work if one person isn't actually doing that? And they go into the flat and, you know, or maybe not even go in the flat to see the person, just leaves the person in there. You know, that person's used to somebody popping in, oh, are we doing our list today? So, you know, Johnny, are we actually doing it today? Oh yeah, we'll do that today. You know, what if 2 or 3 other people aren't doing that? What's the downside? What could potentially happen?
Well, nothing really, don't worry.
So what's going to happen to that structure then?
It's going to just fall apart, isn't it?
Yeah.
So would you say that that structure is crucial in any independent living environment?
Oh, I don't know to say yes or no.
No, it's not a loaded question, Nigel. If the structure isn't in place in a house or a home where you've got support workers working there, and you've got a place where people have that input and that structure, which is the one that would work the best for people?
Well, the structure that's in place.
Yes.
Because if you
Yes.
don't have one, everything just go wrong.
Well, you'll have a situation where either somebody overeats or undereats.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no structure, there's nobody checking to see if they're okay, and they know what they're doing. Either they don't remember, or they don't really know, or they just binge eat sometimes and not other times, and it gets quite messy.
Yeah, and
It does, yeah.
if staff are apathetic, and you're always going to get that in services, then you might get one who's very proactive, who you know, make sure that structure that's in place, it should be quite clearly placed into that person's files, so everybody can you know, work with that. If that person's switched on and the individual's used to them coming in, like even Trey are, then it's going to work.
Yeah,
You've got a good chance of it working rather than failing. And then you've got a situation where someone isn't following that through, and then the individual thinks, oh, well, wait a minute, and they lapse into, oh, well, they're not bothered, so I'm just going to watch telly all day, you know. And then somebody else comes in the following shift to see someone, and then, you know, they haven't done recycling, the dishes are dirty in the sink, they haven't actually done a list, because it might be shopping day when that support worker comes in, they haven't got a list compiled.
no, they haven't. No.
You have to hurry the individual to get the list before they go shopping. So, I mean, for me, and again, we're going to come on to approaches in the next interview, it's totally crucial in anything you do,
It is, yeah.
you know, and in the absence of it, you've got chaos.
Well, yes, and it's very stressful. I mean, it's very stressful for the client you're supporting, and also it's stressful for the people who are trying to do that,
Yeah,
because it loads them. They're trying to pick up on the things that hasn't been done, but you've got a backlog.
absolutely. So all the interested parties in that individual's care, and there's many, yeah, each one of those has a massive responsibility to ensure that they're all working together.
Yeah,
It's called an integrated approach,
Yeah.
integrated care. Now, it's no good the, say, a psychologist or psychiatrist coming along once every blue moon and then asking the person if they're all right and giving them tick lists if that person's in chaos. Because if that chaos is identified, then they've got to do something, talk to somebody else, they talk to them, ask the staff team, why is this not a consistent approach? Why aren't you working to this particular structure? Everybody's accountable,
yeah, they are.
right down to the bottom. Yeah? Because if you put somebody into your service, you've got an obligation to make sure that service is provided holistically. Yeah? But we
Definitely.
will come on to that again
Yeah.
at some point. So, just to round off, because time's marched on, is there any parting comments you want to both make about the health and well-being, because we haven't mentioned exercise, have we?
We haven't, and exercise became very important as well for you to improve your
Yeah.
health and to get away from a really bad place.
Yeah.
And can you touch on how that worked and how it helped you?
Nigel just done 4 heavy lifts this morning, by the way. So. Yeah, and he wasn't forced to do it either.
No, it wasn't.
We'll try to have a new collars out, which we'll mention in the next interview. Sorry, Nigel, go on.
Just well, help me with my weight and stuff, and help me with my mobility and stuff like that.
So, do you feel as though you're more mobile and stronger now, and
Yeah.
you've got a bit more energy?
Yes, I am.
Yeah? I mean, you're never going to lose that immobility because
No.
it's part of your learning disability anyway. But I've noticed that you're more mobile.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, okay, there's still that risk of falling over and things,
Yeah, there is,
especially
yeah.
when you're out and about on curbs and things like crossing the road. You know, but does it give you more confidence to feel more
Yeah.
mobile and stronger?
It does, yeah. More confidence, yeah.
And what would you tell people then who are listening and will eventually listen to this anyway? You touched on health and well-being last time, I think.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to mention how it makes you feel to be stronger and to go to where you work out and do your lifting, do your bullying exercises with train? You know, what are the feelings now? If you go back to the dark days of takeouts and pub lunches and things like that, what are the feelings that you've got now that you didn't have before?
Well, you look forward to it.
That's
And
good.
You focus on what you're going to do. Instead of sitting and down the takeaway and watching TV, you can, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and do my exercises and stuff, and you feel better afterwards for it.
So would you promote that for people who are not getting that at the moment?
Yeah.
You know, would you say to organisations, right, well, you need to be, you know, introducing people
Yeah.
into things that are going to make them feel healthier
Yeah.
and better themselves? Now, I know that from your experience, that when I work out, I feel better.
Yeah,
You know,
you feel
but-
better.
It doesn't have to be weights, folks, either. You know, there's
No,
many
no.
other different kinds of exercise you could take part in. Just a nice walk with your staff team, you know,
Yeah.
sorry, staff member or whatever, in the fresh air is good. You know, if you do it on a regular basis, maybe go a bit further each time, that's going to keep you fit as well. So you don't have to be, you know, gung-ho like we are, but if you can introduce some resistance training, it's good. It's
Yeah.
been proven scientifically it's good anyway. I did older people as well.
Yeah, they advise it now.
Oh yeah. Because I go into elderly care homes and things now and do exercise
Yeah.
and things. So, yeah, anything you want to part and shot, Trey? Comment on that?
I
On
think
the health and well-being?
as well with the exercise is the fact that it also improved your mental health.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, give that focus improves your mental health, so it helped refocus away from your anxiety, your stress. That's always there, but it helps you manage it.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So that's been a real benefit for you, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So, outcomes, as with everything that we do, we like to evaluate to see if it's you know, effective enough and if we can adapt it or whatever. What are the learning outcomes? What are the things that good things that have come out of this that you can see physically? You mentioned one there, and I've noticed you've had less anxiety attacks, you've had less depressive times.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there. You're not going to, you know, most people suffer with that from time to time, but you're better in yourself.
Yeah.
I can see that. You're more confident. You know, you communicate much better now as well.
I do, yeah.
What other outcomes have taken place in relation to the input on this side, the dietary, nutrition, health and well-being? What are the outcomes other than that? What else have you noticed?
Well, it's a weight loss.
Yeah.
Your skin is better.
It feels better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it was getting quite almost like a rash, and it was changing colour, and that was because of the food you were eating that was
Yeah.
coming through your skin. And I think as well, I think it probably helped your teeth.
Yeah, did you?
I know we had to, you had to get on top of your dental care, but you're not eating as much sweet and acidic stuff,
No.
all the pop and stuff, so that helped your teeth. So there was that as well. And would you say you sleep better?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, because it would also have a beneficial effect on that, the exercise and what you eat. You're not as unsettled at night.
What about the last workout now, so the Friday workout that I took? Did you sleep well that night?
Yeah.
I think you were unconscious, were you?
So, we're going to round off now because time's marched on. Thank you, Nigel, thank you, Trey. As with everything that we put on, it's fun, but it's also informative, we like to think. We're trying to create an environment where best practice is shared. It should anywhere be shared. And if there's any bad practice there, it should be eradicated.
Yeah.
And anybody who promotes bad practice should also be taken out of the equation. So, any questions, any comments, please, feel free to do so. But we only listen to good comments. So, any bad ones, good luck with that one.
Yeah.
We are going to come back again because we're doing a series of interviews on different aspects of natural care, although it is all linked together.
It isn't.
And it's being done in a way where it'll inform people of what we have experienced and the evidence, which you can check out anyway on the blog and Facebook page. There's quite clear evidence that the process, the care administration that we carry out as Stepping Stone 2 actually works. It's no good saying you've got a good care organisation if you can't back it up with evidence.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to challenge us on that, fine, but we've got stacks of evidence out there to prove it works. And it was always admitted that way, go back in time. We do have a number of care organisations now that actually shouldn't be operating, and they should be taken out of the equation.
Yeah.
And you all know who you are as well. And any members who are actually carrying out malpractice in those organisations, you should also be taken out of the equation. But what we're looking at now is, because social care is starting to get looked at more and more now to lift it up, the profile of it,
Yeah.
and also the effectiveness. We are looking at being a part of that and informing people what is best practice. So we're going to come back soon. Thanks for listening. Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
Thank you.